The second question then would be about indirect assessments. So it's the question was, I did an indirect assessment with the team members that support a kiddo I work with, and then began to collect ABC data after that. After I operationalized the behavior. Not sure if the data I collected or how I entered it in the graph, but I need help getting to the eventual step of the behavior plan. So I think that the question has to do more so with, the data, like how do I know that the data I collected is correct? How do I take that data and transform it into a behavior plan? And that's a great question. I mean, a lot of times, we look at negative behavior and we say, okay, let's go back to, our ABA 101 and what we learned about behavior. And that is obviously, you need to operationalize the definition. You need to be able to write the behavior in terms of it being observable and measurable. It sounds like you did that. Awesome. Okay, now what? What kind of data do we collect? How do I know what I need for a behavior plan? And I think that the answer to that question is, well, where do you want to go with it? What do you need to know, or what do you want to eliminate? So for instance, I don't know, take a child who is engaging in hitting. Okay, so I've got a child who engages in aggression, aka hitting. I'm not going to operationally define it for you guys, but basically he hits other people, period. I can take the frequency of behavior, how often he hits, because that's what I want to reduce in the long run. And then over time, I can see if that's, if that's a reduction. I probably am not going to take duration, because it's like the hitting in terms of what it is, it's kind of a one-off. He hits somebody else. It's a one-off, it's done. The hitting doesn't usually last for 2 or 5 or 10 minutes, or God, I hope it doesn't. So that way it's pretty discrete. It's just a frequency. If I had somebody who was engaging in, say, chin pressing behavior, meaning I had a student who used to do this and chin press, we took frequency of that, but the problem is that he would do, like, sometimes he would just go like this, and sometimes he'd go whack, 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 whack. And you didn't know, like, sometimes I couldn't even count how many he did. He would just do it so quickly. So that way you could operationally define like an episode. So an episode of chin pressing means that there has to be a delay in between the chin pressing. So, that could be an episode, or whack, 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 whack. That could be an episode, because for my end result, if I have 762 instances of chin pressing and it goes down to 740, it's, number one, hard for me to count that. But secondly, it doesn't really matter. What I want to know is how often throughout the day they're doing that, not necessarily how many chin presses. Does that make sense? So what Shira and I will do is take, that and say, what's an episode? So an episode is defined as, hitting back of hand against chin. There has to be a 10-second delay before the next episode begins, or something along that lines. So that's frequency, but it's not necessarily frequency of each hit, it's frequency of episode. Something like a tantrum. A tantrum would be something like duration. How long does the tantrum last, right? I can't really do frequency of tantrums, although I could. There has to be, say, a 10-second delay in between, but how long are the tantrums, right? So sometimes I've taken frequency of tantrums before, and it hasn't been, my data hasn't shown that it's decreased yet. It has, because the tantrums have gone from 30 minutes each to 2 minutes each, but I'm still getting 5 throughout the session. So for a tantrum, you may want to take duration data and frequency data. Sometimes with tantrum data or with duration data, some therapists will lump it all together. So say, for instance, they've had 5 episodes of tantrums, but I don't know, one episode is 2 minutes, one episode is 30 minutes, one episode is 15 minutes, etc. They lump it all together, and throughout a session, they've tantrumed 45 minutes throughout the session. Useful information, but I find it's better information if I have how long each tantrum was. I need to know the average of each tantrum so that over time, if I can see it occur. Somebody else asked, would partial interval be appropriate in this case? And the answer is yeah, probably. You could fill out a partial interval graph, and then from there, you've got information not only on like the number of intervals throughout the session it's occurring, but I mean, a partial interval will also tell you about frequency. right? It'll tell you about frequency, how often you'll see it on the intervals, how many intervals. It'll also tell you the duration or rough duration of how long it lasted, for sure. Another good resource is, oh my gosh, I just blanked. I can see her face, and she was my
Linda LeBlanc.
professor. Isn't that horrible? Yes. Dr. Linda LeBlanc. I love her. But again, something that you could take a look at. So if you go into the behavior section on our website again, so evaluating problem behavior for Linda LeBlanc, she is absolutely amazing. And what she's done is she's come up with a data collection algorithm. So here's her article and everything else in here. And her algorithm looks like this. So basically, is the problem behavior observable? Yeah, it is. Is the problem behavior discrete? No, it's not discrete. Okay, so is our observer resources sufficient to continuously monitor problem behavior? Yeah, I would say so. Okay, great. Let's do partial interval recording, right? Or is the problem behavior observable? Yeah, it is. Is the problem behavior discrete and countable? Yeah, it is. Okay, so are observer resources sufficient to count each instance of problem behavior? Yes. Okay, great. Can problem behavior occur at any time? No. Okay, that's when you do event recording. Or if yes, then you get into this. So it's a nice guide, and she's done basically data on this. She's collected data, so it's the efficacy of this is there. So something to check out on our website, which is all the stuff by Linda LeBlanc.
And the way that I look at data collection in terms of development of the BIP is I'll have the ABC data collection really just to give me an idea of like the function and what the replacement behavior is going to be. So I'll have the team collect ABC data. It could just be for a couple days. And with ABC data, you're going to get frequency because it's going to tell you how many times it's happening. Sometimes I'll add duration in there. And then what the information that gives me is what are the what's the function, hypothesized function? What are the replacement skills that the student might be missing? What time of day is it happening? Like, how can we put a plan in place in the behavior plan? Like, is it always happening during the transition to recess? Okay, so what can we fix about the transition to recess? So it gives me information about what to put in the behavior plan, what the antecedent strategy should be, what the consequence strategy should be. And then from there, I may not even keep the ABC data collection. From there, it may just be frequency and just have them collect frequency ongoing to see, is the frequency that we got from that initial baseline assessment with the ABC, is that decreasing? Maybe duration's decreasing, whatever that measure is that you got from the initial baseline and that you created the behavior plan with, you want to continue to measure, but it doesn't have to be through the same ABC, whatever works. It could be partial interval, it could be frequency, duration. And then you're also measuring the replacement skills. You may be teaching FCT, you may be teaching tolerates, certain situations or a language skill or things like that. And you're also measuring that skill acquisition at the same time. So that's kind of the data collection that I see within the behavior plan process. And remember to do what's not overwhelming for the team. So whatever they can do, you may have to adjust. So if partial interval recording is really overwhelming for the therapist or for the team or for the teacher or whoever's collecting data, then you may have to adjust. You may not get all the information that ideally you would want, but you can work with what's doable, because it's better to have like effective, a little bit of effective data than to have a ton of like meaningless data that people don't even want to collect. So just remembering to keep that in mind too.
Sherry, you said something that's near and dear to my heart about ABC graphs. I guess they're not graphs, ABC data. I love ABC data to find out what the function is. If you already know the function, you don't need ABC data. What happens often is that, I'll go into a classroom situation and, a teacher will be in there and she'll be like, oh, I tried this ABA thing and it just doesn't work. Or, the last consultant came in and I've got these reams of data and they're showing me novels full of ABC data. I've got all this and I don't know what to do with it. I typically, I take it and I usually just shred it after. I don't shred it, but I don't look at it because it's meaningless to me. There's so much of it and it's all teacher reports and it doesn't really make that much sense. So I'll typically do ABC for maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 days max. We have to find out the function. Once you found out the function, or once you know a little bit more about the behavior, switch to something a lot less cumbersome. Shira nailed it, right? Like, you need to look at your team and you need to look at what they're really good at. And chances are they're really good at teaching. Data collection, even though in our field we say, oh, data, 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 it still should be secondary, right? So we should always need data, but it shouldn't be the first and foremost thing. It's good teaching is the first and foremost thing. So, trying to come up with a data collection system that works for your team, sometimes that is just a yes, no, or it's a rating scale, or it's a check mark in a box, and that's okay. We can make sense of that. Is it the best of the best? No, but will it show you what we need to show? Yeah, absolutely. So, if you can take home something from this, use an ABC for a couple days and switch to something else, and take a look at that, take a look at those things on our site in terms of choosing the right data collection methods.